Gotham Knights. This review is going to be so frustrating for me to get through. My opinions on this game are so conflicted. Honestly, I was really impressed by a lot of its ideas, some of its story elements, a bit of its gameplay. It surprised me in ways I didn't expect it to, and I had a lot of fun at times, not gonna lie. But outside of the core gameplay, some of the main story beats, I want to tear it to absolute shreds for the lack of originality and direction it has to it, how painfully average and unremarkable so much of it is by the time the credits roll. Gotham Knights doesn't make any real attempt to justify its own existence. In its current form, the game doesn't need to exist. It's one step forward and several steps back in so many ways. Those that defend Gotham Knights are so quick to throw stones at anyone comparing the game to the Batman Arkham series that came before it, specifically Arkham Knight from 2015. They feel it's unfair to do so because both games are not connected narratively. They're set within their own continuities. Gotham Knights is not a sequel, but doing its own thing, establishing its own universe. But I think comparing these two franchises is not only acceptable and warranted, but necessary. Love or hate the story of Batman Arkham Knight all you want. I myself even have issues with it that I went into in my review of it several years ago. But from a production standpoint, a structural standpoint, it has become the measuring stick for third-person action-adventure superhero games across the board. It has set the standard for quality. Gotham Knights would like you to believe that it's forging its own path and establishing its own identity, setting itself apart from its Arkham predecessors. But it sure doesn't feel that way with how much it blatantly recycles from the Batman Arkham series. I wouldn't really have a problem with Gotham Knights reusing so much from the Arkham games if it weren't for the fact that it struggles so hard to provide anything new and meaningful in exchange. And this has more to do with its story than its gameplay, which I will get to in a few minutes. The best part about Gotham Knights, the redeeming qualities it does have that I thoroughly enjoy, are all superficial for the most part. I like the gameplay, even if it does borrow heavily from what had come before. The advancements it does make are welcomed. I like the RPG elements, with you earning experience and unlocking new abilities via a skill tree. While the crafting system is simplistic, I love the idea of being able to customize your superhero suits, equipping various gear loadouts, and adding bonus elemental damage, like fire, freezing, or acid, to your hero's attacks. Being able to freely tag in and out between the four members of the Bat family is great too. Batgirl, Robin, Nightwing, and Red Hood all have their own strengths and weaknesses in terms of their combat and abilities. The combat system found in Gotham Knights is different from what we saw in the Arkham games with its free-flow system. It's definitely slower by comparison, but that just makes it more refreshing in my opinion. A nice change of pace after 4 solid games using the free-flow style. While I prefer Arkham's combat system over the one found here, Gotham Knights' combat is still a lot of fun in its own ways. I love its focus on weak and strong strikes, ranged attacks, and unique special abilities, all of which are really simple to pull off. Can it get repetitive? Sure, but that's no different than any other combat-heavy game out there. I think a lot of reviewers online have exaggerated the monotony of it. When you fully learn the controls and all of the special moves at your disposal, you'll be surprised with the variety it offers. Like all things, it takes time to master. Even the meatier enemies aren't as bad as they're made out to be. If you switch up your attacks, equip elemental boosts, and utilize your hero's unique abilities when their momentum meters fill, you can damage them pretty fast, knowing the best windows to strike. The only time I found the combat to be exhausting in Gotham Knights was during some of the boss battles. A few of them are really poorly designed. The bosses in Gotham Knights are just grindy damage sponges. There really isn't a whole lot of strategy to beating them. With most of them, you can just spam your ranged attacks on them. In fact, it's the best tactic against them. They don't shift gears on you and make you rethink your approach mid-battle, like some other bosses in the genre. They're just boring, not memorable in any way, and how some of them are structured, like Mecha Freeze for example, are just awkward and sorta conflict with the style of gameplay found in the game. A lot of the special moves your character has are better for crowd control, not for one specific target, especially one that size that can attack you so quickly and disrupt your special abilities. It's hard to explain, but none of it feels right in that one. Contradictory. It's just messy to sit through. Gotham Knights boasts the largest Gotham City ever featured in a video game, consisting of several large islands connected with bridges. Graphically, it's quite impressive, and the loading times are virtually non-existent when activating fast travel. There are some distinct landmarks and colorations used with a few of its districts, but I do find this Gotham to be lacking a lot of the personality found in previous Batman games. It's actually populated this time around with civilians, unlike in the Arkham series, but somehow still feels lifeless at times. This Gotham just feels very generic and uninspired to me. It does its job, it's not terrible, but it could have been so much more. I think the reason I find this Gotham to be so dull when compared to versions of the city in past games is because outside of the main story missions and any active crimes that pop up, there isn't a whole lot of exciting and engaging stuff to do in this sandbox. Some traversal challenges with waypoints, a few crime scenes that lay out all of the clues in front of you and don't even have you go and apprehend the suspect afterwards, which is really bizarre, and a few collectibles in the form of batarangs left behind from training with Batman, street art, Court of Owl's journal pages, and Gotham landmark plaques, none of which feel very meaningful. A lot of people have already mentioned this, but unlocking fast travel points is really strange. You have to scan multiple drones blocking your signal in a given area, some of which are shielded, and you are forced to wait until they land on a recharge station to scan them. I would have much rather preferred some type of minigame to accomplish this, a hack of some kind with a gadget. Then again, this game doesn't focus on the use of gadgets like the Arkham series did, sadly, and instead emphasizes character abilities with combat and traversal. But I think having some sort of minigame or puzzle to unlock these fast travel points would have been far more enjoyable than the incredibly dense idea they went with. It's boring, not fun whatsoever. There are references to Batman mythology and the larger DC universe you can find sprinkled throughout the interiors and exteriors of this Gotham City, but they are nowhere near as plentiful and layered as they were in the Arkham games, where every Easter egg you found seemed to have a reason for being there, an entire backstory you could unlock by scanning it, adding to the game's rich lore. The Gotham found in Gotham Knights is grand in scale and an achievement in graphics, but its charm is only surface level in my opinion. The atmosphere and world building in this game is very weak when compared to the Arkham titles. By the time Arkham Knight had come out, I was sorta sick of all the Riddler challenges, but Gotham Knights doesn't offer any sort of worthwhile replacement for them. I know defenders of the game are quick to call the Riddler trophies in the Arkham series tedious, just as tedious as this game's Batarang collecting is, for example, but at least the Riddler's challenges tested your problem-solving skills to solve a puzzle to acquire a trophy, or use a clue to find and scan an Easter egg, unlocking a character profile or backstory of the events of the game. They served a purpose, gave you a reason to explore every inch of the map. They challenged the player's gaming sensibilities and added to the overarching narrative. In Gotham Knights, it's just a hollow collectathon. The only collectible that has any sort of merit to it, I guess, is the Court of Owl's Historia Strigidae, a book of secrets that documents a bit of the court's history and some of the heinous actions they have taken throughout the centuries to maintain their stranglehold over Gotham. But even with them, I find there to be too many to collect, especially with how you collect them. It isn't all that interesting when you've done it numerous times. All you do is follow a trail of breadcrumbs in the form of symbols. That's it. Again, Riddler was tedious in his own way, but at least his puzzles would change and offered a bit more complexity to them at times. They didn't lose their flavor, at least not as quickly as the stuff in this game does. You can traverse the city in Gotham Knights in a variety of ways. Each member of the Bat family has his or her own unique, heroic travel option you unlock by beating a series of knighthood challenges, which consist of doing an AR training module with a hologram Batman, stopping 10 crimes in the city, and beating 3 sub-boss enemies with each character. Until you unlock these abilities, you are forced to utilize a combination of grapnels and jumps to scale rooftops and cover long distances. It's really awkward and not all that fun, to be honest. Batgirl's heroic travel has her glide around with her cape, similarly to how Batman did in the Arkham games, just its control is nowhere near as smooth. Nightwing has a glider, and it's probably my favorite form of heroic travel in the game. It's pretty fast and feels more intuitive than the other ones do, allowing you to quickly raise and lower your altitude. Red Hood's is okay. He calls upon the mystical powers of the Lazarus Pit to perform a series of jumps. It's kinda weird, but at least it's still useful. Robin's downright sucks. I hate it. He teleports using the Justice League satellite. It does have a few applications when taking out enemies using stealth, but it just feels so damn slow and cumbersome to move around that I just stopped using it after a while. I should mention you have the Bat Cycle as well in this game to cover areas on the ground, which I may or may not have already shown footage of in this video. You can pop wheelies and customize its appearance to fit each character, which is neat, though something about it seems unfinished. Outside of being a means of transport, it doesn't serve any other purpose. You can fire your ranged weapons while driving it, but not once in the entire game is this required from you. It's not like there are any enemy vehicles that attack you on the streets, so it's all just for show. Driving the Batcycle can be fun, using it to get from point A to point B, and there are some waypoint races you can do to unlock new paint jobs for it, but the hit detection is pretty dreadful sometimes, as if every other vehicle on the road has this impenetrable invisible wall around them, which will occasionally stop you in your tracks. I get that this Gotham has innocent civilians in it now, but I prefer the destructive capabilities of the Batmobile in Arkham Knight. Hate on it all you want, but at least it served a greater purpose than just a means of transport. It helped solve puzzles, had a battle mode to take on Arkham Knight's remote tanks, and could pursue and incapacitate other vehicles during chase sequences with its missiles. The Batmobile was a useful gadget, not a useless toy, like the Batcycle feels like in this game. So up until this point, I've gone pretty easy on this game. All the issues I've mentioned up until now are mostly just nitpicks on my end. I think there's more than enough to enjoy with Gotham Knights when it comes to its gameplay and visuals. It's established a relatively strong foundation for any possible future installments to build on. However, it is time that I address the big elephant in the room with Gotham Knights, its most glaring flaw in my opinion. The story of the game is excruciatingly mediocre, downright pathetic and inexcusable for a superhero game of its scale, with its budget. It feels like a DLC expansion masquerading as a full game. The developer, WB Games Montreal, had an opportunity to do something truly special with Gotham Knights. Even if they borrowed a lot of gameplay elements from the Arkham series, they still could have established a bold new identity for it at the same time, but unfortunately, they, or maybe their higher-ups, lacked the courage to do so. They played it safe in far too many ways, which is why so many people, including myself, view it as a cheap and watered-down knockoff of the Batman Arkham titles. Don't get me wrong, the story of Gotham Knights has its high points. I love the idea of killing off Batman and having his legacy be carried on the shoulders of his students, his family. The way the Dark Knight is taken out at the hands of Ra's al Ghul in the Batcave at the beginning is made very believable. The fight they have is hard-hitting, really intense. I love how it's shot, the choreography to it, its film quality, one of the best I have ever witnessed in a video game. Well, a video game cutscene at least. I love Batman's resourcefulness throughout, using as many weapons in his armory and fighting styles that he knows to take it to the villain. The fight makes Batman look really strong going out, seeing him backed up against a wall like he was, mortally wounded, and forced to use the Batcave's self-destruct protocol. The whole sequence lasts like 10 minutes. It's epic and awesome. Following Bruce's death, the heroes continue his mission to protect Gotham, inheriting Batman's backup hideout called the Belfry, located in the Union Station clock tower. There, you can switch characters, go over any clues you've found, and prepare yourself for the next night out on patrol. I wish the game allowed you to piece together all of the leads yourself though, figure out where to go next. It just holds your hand the entire time. The clue board is just for show. Even Batman and Robin from 1998 did a better job with all of this, and that's sad. When I see games like Gotham Knights, it makes me realize just how ahead of its time Batman and Robin really was. The movie, no, but the game, yes. The dynamic between Barbara, Tim, Dick, and Jason is one of this game's biggest strengths though. The absence of a central protagonist does lead to some balancing issues at times. They sort of cannibalize each other a bit, but that comes with the territory with team-up stories like this. They're typically weaker than the solo ones, it's unavoidable. I also found some of the dialogue to be really cliché at times. Alfred is like a walking Hallmark card with his speeches, and some of the voice acting is a bit cringy too in areas. I like how we get to see the heroes' personalities clash though, their egos and emotions come between them, and they are still learning about themselves and each other. The grieving process affects them all differently too, how they are learning to move on and accept the death of their close mentor and friend, and if they can live up to the expectations he set for them. Nightwing is coming to terms with the rocky relationship he had with Batman when he broke off his partnership with him, leaving Gotham to go protect Bloodhaven as his own form of vigilante. He was Batman's first sidekick, making him the oldest and most experienced of the Gotham Knights. He just wants to make Batman proud. Robin is the youngest of them all, the inexperienced rookie that needs to chart his own path. He also has the hardest time grieving the loss of Bruce. At one point, he contemplates using a Lazarus pit to bring Bruce back, but Jason talks him out of it, saying that it's painful. What you come back as isn't the same person that goes in, and that Bruce was unique. He's not like some simple machine that can be taken apart and put back together. Red Hood has turned over a new leaf, putting his darker past, his resurrection with the Lazarus Pit, behind him, though he still suffers from episodes of PTSD as a result. And Batgirl is not only finding herself in the shadow of Batman, but her recently deceased father as well, having difficulty remembering his face despite having a photographic memory. Tragic. Gotham itself is left in the dark regarding what had happened to Batman, with most believing he had just vanished. With James Gordon dead as well, apart from Renee Montoya, the vigilantes don't really have anyone defending their cause within the police force anymore, meaning the relationship between Gotham's vigilantes and the GCPD has soured. There are a lot of similarities that can be made with this story and the story found within Batman Arkham Origins as it relates to the strained relationship between the heroes and the police. But I like some of the ideas in Gotham Knights a little more. The GCPD officers aren't completely vilified like they were in Origins. When on patrol, you will frequently encounter police, but taking them out will not earn you any experience points, so ideally, you'll want to avoid them to earn their respect. Also, after stopping crimes, if you don't leave the scene immediately, the officers that arrive will shoot at you, believing you are somehow involved. It's a nice touch, and creates this intense flow to your vigilantism, a get in and get out mentality. The Gotham Knights would end up investigating one of Batman's leads before he died, a scientist named Dr. Kirk Langstrom. They discover that he had been murdered, and you go to the city morgue to look at his body in the autopsy room. The crime scenes you solve in this game are really bland. None of them are memorable, and how they are laid out is just pitiful. All of the clues are placed right in front of you in this first-person perspective, with you needing to hover over each one and connect the dots. They're made way too simple. Even if you manage to fail a few guesses, the game will offer to solve it for you with a solution prompt. It's sad. I feel like the developers shouldn't have even included crime scenes in the game if this is all they were going to be. Anywho, through the Penguin, the heroes uncover the existence of a secret society who have been controlling Gotham from the shadows for hundreds of years, called the Court of Owls, who were responsible for killing Langstrom, one of their members, after he had formed an alliance with the League of Shadows behind their back. The court's nests, their lairs, are hidden throughout some of the oldest buildings in Gotham, and exploring them are easily the most engaging sequences in this entire game. The court has been mining a rare compound underground called Dionysium, which possesses supernatural rejuvenating abilities, similar to the Lazarus Pit. You not only take on their more sophisticated members in suits and masks, but also variations of their undead Talon assassins. Battling them is a hassle, but that's what makes it fun. Their movement is very erratic, animalistic, and they dodge most of your offense. You need to stun them with charged ranged attacks first before going in for the kill. Seeing the Court of Owls finally make their debut in video games was very gratifying, and the main reason I bought Gotham Knights to begin with. I adore the Court of Owls concept and their debut storyline from the New 52, which I have reviewed on the channel, and I was curious to see how many of those aspects and notable moments would carry over into the game. There's a sequence where you search for the missing 13th floor of a hotel and find various dining areas inside, because after all, just like the comic had stated, some owls don't make their nests and instead steal them from other birds. You become drugged by the Court of Owls and are forced to navigate their massive shifting labyrinth beneath the city. The best part of the entire game, in my opinion. You encounter a series of death traps and face off with the deepest and darkest fears of whatever member of the Gotham Knights you are playing as. Every time you die from one of the traps, you wake up on a stone slab and see photographs with red frames depicting your demise. The maze sequence isn't perfect. I don't think the developers pushed the fear visuals as much as they could have. It's done much better in the comic storyline with Batman, but I admire the attempt that was made here. It's pretty decent, not gonna lie. When you first uncover the court, you discover one of their lairs beneath the Powers Club. There are death traps in that one also, spinning spikes and flamethrowers with a moving conveyor belt, and at the end, you fall into this large pit filled with bones, the many victims of the Court of Owls throughout the centuries. The moment didn't remind me of the Court of Owls story, but rather the cult storyline with Deacon Blackfire, when Batman and Robin stumble upon that mass grave in the sewers. I was almost expecting Batman to be revealed alive then and there, and walk out of the shadows, telling Robin, "Welcome to hell." In Gotham Knights, the Court of Owls are at war with the League of Shadows, led by Talia al Ghul. She takes over as leader after pushing her father's body into the incinerator at the beginning of the game. Though she appears to be an ally at first, it's revealed that Talia had been manipulating the Gotham Knights to weaken the court so the League could effectively take over Gotham and purge the city of its corruption. You end up going to the abandoned Arkham Asylum, a very dull interpretation of it compared to countless other ones we've seen over the years. There are a few Easter eggs you can find scattered throughout the mental hospital, a few supervillain cells for example, but so much of it feels lazy and tacked on. For Arkham Asylum, it's depressingly underutilized. So much more could have been done with it. What a waste. Anyways, at Arkham, you learn that the League have been using Kirk Langstrom's research in combination with the Lazarus Pit to create several Man-Bat super soldiers you are forced to battle. When I first started playing Gotham Knights, I was hoping the game would just stick to its guns by having Batman stay dead, because there wouldn't really be any place for him in this game and series moving forward narratively if he had become a fifth playable character or something, despite how much fun playing as Batman sounds. Very early on, I had grown skeptical of his death though. Whenever the Knights would speak about Batman to their other allies in the city, it felt like the dialogue was avoiding certain keywords and phrases to hide something, beating around the proverbial bush. I got worried that the game was going to reveal Bruce as the leader of the Court of Owls in those fancy masks, the voice, somehow brainwashed. Not only would it have been very cliché and predictable, but it would have lazily reused a similar plot device we had already seen done to death in the Arkham games, with Joker secretly Black Mask in Arkham Origins, and Jason Todd, the Arkham Knight, in Arkham Knight. No, they didn't make Bruce the voice of the court in this game. Instead, it was his uncle Jacob Kane, CEO of the military contracting company Kane Industries. Yeah, I know. Who cares? The biggest issue I had with the thought of Batman coming back, though, is that I felt it would undermine the strong and emotional death he had been given in the game's intro, and I think that's exactly what happened here at the end of Gotham Knights. Bruce Wayne is revealed to be alive. His body had been stolen by his beloved Talia al Ghul, and she has brainwashed him to become the newest leader of the League of Shadows. Within the ruins of the Batcave, you must face off with an evil version of Bruce and free him of his mind control. You also take on Talia as well. Some would argue that this is a fitting moment. It gives the hero you are playing as a chance to say a final goodbye to Batman and be told they are doing a good job, that he is proud of them, but I think it's pointless. That kind of stuff goes without saying. It doesn't need to be force-fed to you as the player, especially after we had already gotten that sentiment countless times from Alfred throughout the game, who knows Bruce better than anyone. Literally in every one of their separate cutscenes with Alfred, he regurgitates the same rhetoric over and over again. So much of the writing in this game feels bland, cookie-cutter, and kind of insults your intelligence. After being freed of the mind control, Bruce is mortally wounded by Talia and sacrifices himself to destroy the Lazarus Pit with the Batwing, preventing it from falling into the hands of the Court of Owls. So even though he is brought back, it isn't for very long. I think all of this was unnecessary. It didn't need to be shoehorned in just because, and undercut the strong death and funeral sequence we got at the beginning of the game. It wasn't worth it, in my opinion. The whole ending of Gotham Knights is very underwhelming and leaves you wanting more, and not in a good way. Not only was the resurrection and second death of Batman a complete waste of time and energy, but Talia, who acts as the final boss of the game, escapes capture and teleports away, so there is no solid resolution offered. The story of this game has its power cord pulled out prematurely. It feels unfinished and stops just when it starts building momentum. I wish I could say the side missions and side villains in the game help alleviate some of the weaknesses within the main story, pad it out a little, and improve it, but they are the worst parts of the game in my opinion. It's so strange how these bonus case files were implemented. They act like separate little episodes you load into, like a DLC expansion or something. The crimes of these villains take place within their own little bubbles and feel disconnected from everything else going on in the game. It makes them feel very artificial and low stakes in the grand scheme of things. In the Arkham games, all of the villains, big and small, seem to interact with one another, either directly or indirectly. Some of the villains would pick up the pieces following the defeat of another. It made everything feel so alive and connected, and it's another reason the world building in Gotham Knights is so fucking dreadful. You've got Harley Quinn, who calls herself Dr. Q. She uses her social media influence to build up a following and begin selling a special drug called Re-Q that puts people under her control. There's Clayface, who is trying to put his mind and body back together following a recent defeat at the hands of Batman. You catch him recreating a warped version of the events in his head, as if it were a film set or stage play. He's written an entire script for it and portrays Batman as the villain and himself the hero. It's pretty depressing. I think the only reason Clayface was in the game was to show off the technology used to bring his goopiness to life, and honestly, it's quite impressive. And then there's Mr. Freeze, who is made more robot than man in this game, who wants to freeze Gotham using a weather machine. You know how it is. Same shit, different shovel with him. I'd talk about more side villains, but that's it. Those are the only 3 this game offers. The problem I have is that Gotham Knights lazily rehashes several characters we had already seen and went up against in the Batman Arkham series. It baffles me why the developers chose to adapt so much of this again so soon in such an inferior way. Even characters they themselves had already adapted in the Arkham games. Not a single character, a single villain in Gotham Knights that was featured in the Arkham series is written better, not given a more interesting or more impactful motivation for being there. So it begs the question, why even bother having them in this game to begin with? WB Games Montreal had an opportunity here to introduce a completely new roster of supervillains, bring in some fresh faces not a lot of people are familiar with from the comics, and provide these characters with a platform to really shine and make an impression with new audiences. With Batman gone, it gave them even more reason to do this and start over, usher in a new franchise, with these young heroes taking on some exciting new villains. When I saw Ra's al Ghul again, Talia, Harley Quinn, Mr. Freeze, Clayface, and Penguin, it was very disappointing and knocked the wind out of this game's sails. It lost a lot of momentum it could have had, and I found myself not as motivated to take them all on. Again, none of them surpassed or even matched the quality of the characters from the Arkham series, which is why I am so confused that WB Games Montreal felt the need to adapt them again so soon, when those other much better interpretations are still so fresh in everyone's minds. I think it comes down to plain laziness on the part of the game's writer or writers, or possibly an unfortunate mandate from the higher-ups, forcing the developers to use the same handful of characters again and again, feeling those are the only ones that work, that manage to sell, but it's all just a misguided approach to it all, one we've seen time and time again from Warner Brothers, a misunderstanding of the vast comic book universe they have access to, and the value of so many characters found within it. If I had written Gotham Knights, I would have tried to distance its story as much as possible from the Arkham games, because it makes the most sense to do so. The death of Batman and the Court of Owls elements are fine in it, but not enough to effectively allow this game to forge its own path. I would have used the death of Batman, the power vacuum it would have left in Gotham City, as a way to bring in copycat vigilantes that hope to fill the void left by the Caped Crusader, but have them be characters whose actions and motivations have them at odds with the Gotham Knights, like Killer Moth, Wrath, or Catman, for example. Instead of having Mr. Freeze build a weather machine to freeze Gotham, why not have Maxi Zeus have some sort of device that strikes down on the city with lightning bolts or something, having you climb to the top of his tower, fighting his minions, as if it were Mount Olympus itself. And if you didn't want to deal with the Riddler again, you could have replaced him with Cluemaster or something. I don't know. Each member of the Gotham Knights has a unique mission chain in the game that has them find themselves now that Batman is gone, but this could have been pushed even further, with each character having their own unique side villain to pursue. Barbara could have dealt with her deranged brother, James Gordon Jr., or possibly the female ventriloquist with telepathic powers, Shauna Belzer. Dick could have gone up against his great-grandfather, William Cobb, one of the most skilled assassins in the Court of Owls, that failed to make an appearance in the game. And Robin and Red Hood could have battled any number of characters. There were so many to choose from Batman's Rogues Gallery. Jane Doe, Clock King, Count Vertigo, get creative with it. Even if WB Games Montreal attempted to adapt some of these new characters, and maybe fell short of the mark a little bit with them, they at least would have shown some level of effort, and I would have respected and appreciated what they were going for with this game a lot more than I do in its current state. The plot elements involving the death of Batman and the debut of the Court of Owls feel fresh and new, the most interesting, but like I had mentioned, they're not enough to carry this game alone and make it feel different enough from what had come before. Same goes for its gameplay. Gotham Knights in many ways feels like a lazy, watered-down version of a Batman Arkham game, because it copies so much and fails to make any meaningful replacements and additions. It's why so many negative comparisons between it and the Arkham games are happening, and WB Games Montreal did it to themselves. They should have tried harder, especially when it came to the story and characters. It's as simple as that. A lot of their decisions here frustrate me. Gotham Knights should have and could have been so much more than it was. Instead of forging its own path, its own identity, it just latched on to the success of Batman Arkham, sucked its teat, and that's the only way it could sustain itself. Gotham Knights isn't all bad. The graphics are appealing, and like I said earlier in the video, I genuinely enjoy the gameplay, and the changes made to the combat compared to what was found in the Arkham series with its free-flow system. I welcomed it. I also love the main story stuff centering around the death of Batman and the Court of Owls in this game. It felt new. It felt fresh for the most part. I just wish a lot more of the side content was original and not a retread of what had come before. I'm sorry if this review has given off mixed signals, but what I love about this game excites me, and what I don't love about it frustrates me. It really is the two extremes. I am shocked though, after all this time, all these years since the release of Arkham Knight and all of the cancelled games we had heard about, this is the one WB Games Montreal finally went with. This was the strongest story they could come up with. Something tells me Gotham Knights was the leftovers of all those other failed projects, an amalgamation of a few of those ideas, possibly even thrown together haphazardly by Warner Brothers to recover any costs of those cancelled games. That's why, despite setting up a new franchise, it being a reboot, the framework of Gotham Knights almost feels like a sequel to the Arkham games. Maybe it had been originally in some early form, who knows? I think people were chomping at the bit for a new Batman Arkham-esque game for so long that a few of them lowered their standards. They were willing to settle for mediocrity. Maybe even some of the gamers playing Gotham Knights have never played the Arkham ones before and have nothing else to base it off of. I know Gotham Knights has its defenders. I know a lot of people are satisfied with it. Maybe all they wanted was a Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, or Red Hood crime-fighting simulator, which is basically what it is, and they got it. On the surface, with its gameplay, Gotham Knights is fairly solid. But I wanted a much deeper experience. I wanted a far more engaging story, one that was made memorable and epic. That's what truly stands the test of time for me with these kinds of games. It's what gives them so much more replayability, extends their lifespan and interest in the minds and hearts of gamers years after they are released. I expect that from these kinds of games at this point, with how much time and money goes into them and how much they cost at retail. I don't think Gotham Knights has much lasting power in its present form. Generations from now, not many people are going to remember it. Here's hoping we get more DLC expansions for it, ones that add in more villain case files or something, kind of like Arkham Knight did with the Season of Infamy, that helped pad out its story. I'd want to see new villains adapted, ones that we haven't seen in the Arkham games, or in other forms of mainstream media for that matter. It would really help Gotham Knights stand apart and not get lost in the shuffle of much better and provocative DC games we have seen released over the years. And I'm not just talking about the Batman Arkham ones. I doubt we will see any DLC for Gotham Knights though moving forward, apart from that multiplayer heroic assault mode they released with Starro, which I don't even play. I think development on this game is basically dead. WB Games Montreal has already moved on to a new project, it looks like, and I don't know how good the sales were for this game either, but I would assume they were shit. It went on sale really fast, which is never a good sign. Once they cancelled those last-gen versions of it prior to release, that probably didn't help matters either. Even now, some countries are still having supply issues with the newest consoles. All the mixed to negative reactions it got at launch sealed its fate as well. And honestly, a lot of the reviews were fairly accurate, I hate to say it. Gotham Knights dropped the ball in too many areas. In this day and age, it's really hard for a AAA game to recover from that. Gamers move on pretty quick and hate being forced to wait around for things to get better. And with Gotham Knights, I don't think they ever will. What we have is an unfinished experience, decent gameplay with a weak and watered-down story. At the end of the day, extremely forgettable. I want to thank you all for watching my review of Gotham Knights. This game really is a mixed bag for me. There's a lot I like about it, and there's a lot I feel falls flat on its face. But I'd like to hear your opinions on the game down in the comments section below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What are your thoughts on the gameplay and story? How about the side quests and side villains? If you enjoyed the video and would like to see more like it, show your support to me and my channel by subscribing, hitting that bell icon to receive notifications, and by becoming a producer over on Patreon.com to gain access to exclusive bonus episodes of my podcast I release monthly, and help nominate future comic and game reviews or villains for me to break down as well. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and always stay nerdy.